Welcome to another edition of Cattle Chatter. I feel like we might be having a Groundhog's Day type of feel because we're keep repeating things that are happening. But this is probably one of the most interesting markets. And I'll be honest, folks, this is probably one of the most interesting cattle markets I've ever seen in my lifetime. We're going to break down what's going on in this bull market today as Brad Kooima joins us. Of course, he is with Kooima and Varilek out of Sioux Center, Iowa. And let's start there because, if we rewind to the last, 6 months, we haven't had a lot of repeats in our conversations, but this market just continues every week to show us something new and different when it comes to price movement.
I could not agree more. Thanks for having me on, Susan. My favorite program. This is the one where, being the old guy in the room here, 45 years of doing this, I get a lot of this. Well, what do you think, Brad? I mean, have you ever seen this before? Well, I've seen a lot of markets. And this does remind me of a couple. For instance, when corn went over $8, when crude oil went to negative, remember that? I always have a smart aleck comment of, you can buy it at zero with a close stop. Well, that didn't even work with the crude oil that time. So the markets can do very extreme things. And obviously, it wasn't the crude oil wasn't going to stay at a negative. The corn did not stay above $8. And so there's the conundrum if you're a cattle person, right? Now, if you're a speculative trader, the trend is your friend. We can make new highs here every 15 minutes today, which spurs fund buying and also triggers short covering. So people that have been short and are sick of writing checks, they're liquidating their position. At the same time, the funds keep doing what works, and what's worked is to buy new highs, and so that's what they do, and so that works. Do you get the cycle? Until it doesn't, So so this thing, even at that, this thing's exceeded my expectations, and I don't know of any. I remember when I said that feeders could go to 300, and people thought I was nuts. Well, we're 348 now. So cash driven, absolutely. Cash supported, for sure, both on the feeder and on the fat cattle market. But this is some rare air. I keep thinking, how can I be helpful to the people that are watching this thing? And honestly, Susan, I'm struggling a little bit with what's the helpful comment that I need to be making here,
It's hard to say keep the emotion out of this trade at this point.
Oh, yeah. When I go to these beginning marketing meetings, I used to do lots of them. I don't do as many anymore, but that was one of the things I'd always talk about, right? Try to do what you can to remove emotion from your decisions. So I was talking to a customer friend of mine 20 minutes ago that we feed cattle together. Okay. And he says, those feeder cattle we bought last week that were too high, they're hedgeable now. And I'm going like, yeah. And that's okay with me if we hedge them. I've said this and people think I'm kidding. It's like, it's okay to stay bullish, but buy puts. I would, give this gentle encouragement to let's not go Humpty Dumpty here. The market will at some point change. And so I want to make sure we survive that fall too, So I'm a little more, market trade spectacular today. What could have we done to act better? I mean, is it happening right now in front of our eyes? No, I worried a little bit, frankly, this morning, Susan, with all this tariff business, deadlines and stuff. Thought, well, what if the stock market doesn't like that? And it doesn't. The stock market's lower.
Right.
So what? I mean, they're right now. It's don't tell me the bad news. We're going higher. That seems to be the way the market works. Now, the end of the moves will get accelerated like this. The so-called blow off bottom or the blow off top. So, again, you can tell I'm trying to keep everybody a little bit. Let's rein it in here and stay a little bit careful, right?
So Labor Day is going to be here before we know it. I don't know where the summer went, but is this, you and I were talking before we went on the air, is this our Labor Day rally going on right now?
I think you make a great point. I've seen it many, many times where you get that, I don't know, that head fake feel good rally at this time of year where, oh, geez, I guess even though we got quite a few calves coming, which we do, looks like we're all right. And then you get the, oh yeah, well, they bought cattle to get dead. in time so that they could get the whole procurement process done, so that they could get that meat at that last kind of little hurrah beef feature for Labor Day. And then it really slows down in regards to beef features for quite a while, maybe all the way until a week before my birthday. Okay, that's the other seasonal buy, right? To buy it December, end of the first week of December. So that's a very real possibility that maybe that's some of the gas in the tank. So we'll see. Tomorrow we'll probably trade cash here. I think that there's a better than 50-50 chance we could trade cash cattle as high as 250 on the right kind. It was 245 last week. We'll see what the South does. The South needs to get it going here, because we've got a contract under delivery, August cattle, at 238.75. The South hasn't gotten that price yet, so I mean that might be something that we'll be talking about next week, about the potential of, was there going to be any deliveries or not. I guess we'll see.
So are the hedgers in some trouble at this point?
No, the hedgers are. I get it. Been there. This isn't my first rodeo. The problem with it, the hedging thing, is nobody likes to be reminded that you're wrong. But I get to remind these guys about every 3 days, well, we need another margin call, and that's frustrating. And I think sometimes some of the guys lose sight of the fact that I've got 2 loads hedged, I've got 10 loads unhedged, but I'm, rather than being happy with the 10 I don't have, I'm really upset with the 2 that I do have hedged, and that's just human nature. I understand that too. But it gets a little more complicated than just the emotional frustration. It takes a whale of a line of credit just to buy cattle because of the purchase price cost. So, I mean, the way that plays out is you've got a line of credit, and it's a number, and you start making margin calls against that. And some banks are a little more understanding of that than others. But you get past that deal and they go like, hey, we don't have any more money to borrow you for these margin calls. And that potentially for some has been a real problem. So yeah, it's a lot of anxiety. I'm a kind of a guy, put it on as a hedge, take it off as a hedge. I remain disciplined. You had a good reason to do it when you did it. Why does that reason change? Keep going, take your profit, and keep going. But I get it. It's a highly emotional market. And I have those same thoughts myself. So I'm not above it. If anybody says it's easy, they haven't done it, or they're just a liar. So that's the way I look at it.
And through all of this, as we talk, I think of that younger cattleman out there. You talk about you being the older guy in the room, but what about these young guys, these families that are trying to build up an operation? And I mean, they're in times that they have never seen in their cattle cycle of life.
It's not even close. And yeah, I worry again. Now people are going to be really bummed out about this broadcast, aren't they? What did a lot of good come out of $8 corn? Okay, my son and I crop farm too, so I know how to run a combine. Okay, I know how to set a planter. I'm not sure that it did. Okay, input costs went up, rent went up. Land values went higher and got more difficult for a young guy to get in, and blah blah blah. And unfortunately, there's some parallel to $2.45 live cattle. Breeding cattle costs what they do for replacement cattle. I worry about the fallout when it changes. Now, it's not going to be today, probably not tomorrow. But again, it's hard, especially if you're really new to it, Susan. And I mean, all you had to do is wake up in the morning and buy cattle for the last 2 years. I mean, just have some, just get some inventory. They might look too high. So what? They won't be buying, in a couple of months, they won't be too high. And so that's a little bit of an unrealistic thing to think that that's sustainable. But for the here and now, things feel really good, and it's our turn in the saddle, and we've got leverage. But again, I guess, sorry, I'm so boring today, but
No,
you need to be careful up here.
good advice. I was going to say, do you have any parting words as we wrap up this week's episode?
Don't probably take me too seriously, I guess. I do think that we were way overdue for our turn here. The producer was, the cow calf guy was. I do think that it's time for the retailer to eat part of his margin. It's time of that pie. It's time for that packer to have to eat part of that margin. So a couple of things, though, that you want to be careful with. There's a macroeconomic change here that could change it. In other words, if indeed, like the one side says that all these tariffs are going to create a recession, the market will react to that. If they would decide to reopen the Mexican border, and don't think there isn't a lot of pressure from a lot of people down there that they want to get those cattle moving. Now, nobody's talked about it, and everybody said, well, no, it's not going to happen for a long time, but okay.
Right.
And then issues like the screwworm and things like that, and stuff that I didn't even know what a Mexican screwworm was here until a couple of months ago. So that the risk is that there's something else like that out there, right? When you're up here. So anyway, we deserve it. Have a blast. I don't know if I do, but the rest of you cattlemen sure do. And stay bullish and buy puts, huh?
All right. We'll catch up with you next week to find out. But in the meantime, best way to get a hold of you guys.
You can look at us at kkbtrading.com is the website, but we'd rather have you call 712-722-0023.
All right. That, folks, is another edition of Cattle Chatter.
The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading.